Today we're doing vocabulary with money. We've done 4 classes already on vocabulary with work. And if you would like to find those classes, then all you need to do is go to my website, which is right here. And if you click on, so these are on vocabulary. So you need to go to the vocabulary page. Let me put up a link for everybody so that you can click on this page if you would like to see the lesson later or any of the previous lessons. And there are a lot of exercises on that page. So all you need to do is click on that page and then click for exercises. So I can see we've got 13 people here already. So that's great. Let's get cracking. I don't like to faff around. So money today. And good morning, Jalil in the Philippines. So money. So I'm going to read a short text and I'm going to explain a lot of the vocabulary on here. It's just a short text that I made up. So money. Back in our student days, maybe I'll make this even bigger. Back in our student days, many of us were living on the breadline. I think it's better like that, yeah. Many of us were living on the breadline, scrimping and saving as much as we could. We had no choice but to run up huge debts since the living costs and tuition fees were so expensive. So let's do these first 3 expressions. To live on the breadline means to earn only, or not earn in fact, but to receive only enough income just about to survive, yeah, to just survive. So the idea, if you live on the breadline, you are just about getting enough money for food, for your bills, and for rent, but you're not saving anything. So you're living on the breadline. And I think most students do tend to live on the breadline, unless, you know, perhaps they're from a particularly rich background. But so many of us were living on the breadline, scrimping and saving as much as we could. So to scrimp and save means to make great efforts to save money. Yeah, if you're scrimping and saving, you're making a great effort to save money. You're going to great lengths, yeah, to use an old expression, you're going to great lengths to save as much money as you can. So of course, if you haven't got much money, you might want to scrimp and save. So this often means that perhaps you're not buying the expensive products, you're buying the cheaper products in the supermarket. Yeah, you might be scrimping and saving by buying the economy products, that kind of thing. Okay, and we had no choice but to run up huge debts. So this is a phrasal verb expression, to run up debts. And run up goes with debts. You can run up a huge bill as well. You can run up a huge bill in a restaurant if you're just ordering and ordering and ordering really expensive stuff on the menu, then you are running up a huge bill. But if you run up huge debts, well, it just means you take out one loan, then another loan, then another loan. And I don't know how education works in your countries, but in the UK, most students do run up huge debts at university. They take out a student loan because they have no choice. Yeah, they have to take out a student loan in order to study at university. And when I was at university, there were 0 tuition fees. And I still ran up huge debts, and I am still paying off, by the way. I still pay off my student loan. I'm 42 years old, but I'm still paying off that student loan. So I'm still paying for the time when I was at university, even though I've worked in education ever since university. So that's the way it works here. But I'm not complaining. I'm very glad that I didn't have to pay any tuition fees. Yeah, and I know that a lot of people, you know, nowadays they do have to pay tuition fees. So I know it's a great deal more expensive nowadays than it used to be when I was at university. And I think it was better when I was at university because more people could go, even if they weren't from a wealthy background. I would still make it more academic university. I think there are too many courses which don't really have much meat in them and aren't really worth much. So good morning, Vera, good morning, Prawasha, and good morning, Sanar, and good morning, Sarah. Let's carry on. So to make ends meet. Yeah, this is a very common expression. And to make ends meet means to be able, if you do something to make ends meet, then usually maybe you'll get a job in a restaurant to make ends meet. And it just means you get that job to make sure you can afford to pay your bills, yeah, and to pay your rent and to pay your tuition fees. So to make ends meet, so in order to make sure that we could pay all our bills, we got by on the cheapest food. So this is scrimping and saving, when you get by on the cheapest food. So to get by on something means to survive on that something, and it means to just survive on that something. Yeah, and so living on the breadline, scrimping and saving, and getting by on are all very much connected. And so, yeah, you might say something like this. Maybe you didn't cook a lot at university. I didn't. And it means that I got by on a lot of junk food. Yeah, I survived on a lot of junk food. I lived on a lot of junk food. There are actually other phrasal verbs that would work here. It's not just get by on. And while I'm talking about phrasal verbs, don't forget, guys, I've got a big book here on phrasal verbs. So get by on is definitely in this book. And the next expression, to make ends meet, we got by on the cheapest food, only splashing out on restaurants and pubs when it was someone's birthday. So to splash out on something means to spend a lot of money on something. Yes, it's in here. Of course, it's in here. When you splash out on something, you spend a lot of money on something that you enjoy. Yeah. So I splashed out on something for water sports recently. I like getting out on the water here. I live on the coast. And so I splashed out on a new sail. It's like a wing to push me along on my board, yeah, on my paddle board. And I splashed out on it. And I say I splashed out on it because I'm really pleased that I've bought it. It looks great. I tried it out at the weekend and I'm very happy with it. So, yeah, but it wasn't cheap. So I had to splash out on it. So splash out, spend a lot of money on something that you're really pleased with. Compare it with fork out on, which is also in this book, which is when you spend a lot of money and you're not happy about doing it. You spend a lot of money reluctantly. Okay, let's just see if anybody else has turned up. So good morning, learn with Tati. Let's keep going. Splashing out on restaurants and pubs when it was someone's birthday. Only those from well-off families. Now, I haven't highlighted well-off, but I will quickly mention that well-off means comfortably wealthy. Yeah, I would put it like that, comfortably wealthy. If you are well-off, I wouldn't say it means you're super rich, but it does mean that you are wealthy, that you are fairly rich, and that you are living comfortably. It's not hard at all to make ends meet. Yeah, if you are well off, you're not living on the breadline. Compare it to living on the breadline, because if you're living on the breadline, you're just about getting by on the minimum wage and the minimum income. Whereas if you're well off, you have a big income, perhaps a huge income. And so it's no trouble to make ends meet. It's no problem. So only those from well-off families who could fall back on their parents. Now, fall back on somebody or something means to depend on that somebody or something very often as a last resort. Yeah, it means that even though, when they were at university, even though things were tough and they had to spend a lot of money on tuition fees and rent and food and all the rest of it and parties, they didn't have so many problems because they could rely on their parents. They could depend on them as a last resort. Okay, so they could fall back on their parents. They spent the semesters living in the lap of luxury. So this is an expression that means to live extremely comfortably. Yeah, to live with, that doesn't collocate very well, by the way, to live very comfortably, to live a luxurious lifestyle. Yeah, so they were living in the lap of luxury. They were living a luxurious lifestyle. But there were many of us whose parents refused or simply couldn't afford to bail us out. Now, we use this bail somebody out. We used it recently with the financial crisis. We spoke about governments bailing out the banks because the banks made a lot of mistakes and they lost a lot of money, and the taxpayer, the governments, the taxpayer bailed out the banks. They had to take the hit, we say. They were the ones who lost money in the end and not the banks, even though it was the bank's mistake. So that's one example of bail someone out. It means rescue somebody financially. But you can do this if you're a parent and you rescue your child financially. If they spend all their money and then suddenly you send them a load of money, you are bailing them out. And so to bail somebody out, it means to rescue financially. Okay, we had to supplement our income with part-time jobs, interest-free overdrafts, and student loans. So supplement your income, it means, add to your income. Yeah, to supplement your income means to add to your income. So it's talking about the fact that some students had to do part-time jobs and take out interest-free overdrafts and student loans. I actually think most students did, if I remember rightly. But I think I did summer jobs personally. It was in the summer that I would do a full-time temporary job. And for the rest of the year, I actually just studied, as far as I remember. So good morning, Mary M, and good morning, Maria. Even though the conditions of the loan were attractive, and they certainly were, the loan will be written off if it remains unpaid for 30 years. It has a low interest rate. There is the right to defer repayment. So, I didn't mention interest-free overdrafts. Let me quickly mention that. So an overdraft is money that you're allowed to borrow from a bank in an emergency. Yeah. So it means if you've got a £1,000 overdraft, it means that you can spend £1,000 that you don't have in your account, and the bank will allow you up to £1,000 in an emergency. But you still have to pay interest on that overdraft, and the interest can be quite high. And so most people don't like to have an overdraft, because if you do, most people don't like to be overdrawn. I should say that, to be overdrawn, because I have an overdraft, but I'm not overdrawn. Having an overdraft just means you have access to that £1,000 or £2,000 that you can use in an emergency. So you can see these are interest-free overdrafts. So these are overdrafts that won't cost you any money. So you go overdrawn and you don't have to pay any fees. Which is dangerous, really, and probably not a good habit to acquire, going overdrawn. Okay, even though the conditions of the loan were attractive, so the loan will be written off if it remains unpaid for 30 years. If you write off a loan, then it means that you are the one that's owed money, but you decide to forgive and forget. Yeah, you understand that you won't get the money back, and so you write the loan off. And so these student loans were only supposed to be in place for 30 years. If you didn't, in fact, it's still the case, if you don't pay them off in 30 years, then the loan is written off. And of course, that's an attractive option for a lot of students who owe money. So the loan will be written off if it remains for 30 years. There's a very low interest rate. So please learn this word interest rate. It's very important. You have central bank interest rates. That's very often called the central bank lending rate. And you have the word interest rate, which just means the percentage extra that you pay on that loan or overdraft or whatever it is. Mortgage, perhaps. Yeah, mortgages have interest rates. And at the moment, interest rates are at a historical low. Okay, then the right to defer repayment. So to defer repayment, to defer a loan, it means to put off, to postpone repayment. Deferring is putting off or postponing. And so we had a right to defer repayment if we didn't earn over the average salary, I think it was, and that was the right to defer. Okay, many of us are still paying off these debts today. This is certainly true. And we will be doing so for many more years. I urge young people to carefully weigh up the pros and cons of university. Now, to weigh up is excellent phrasal verb. Yes, it's in here. I keep telling you. To weigh up means to judge. Yeah, think about a person weighing something up, and they've got a pair of scales in front of them. Yeah, scales weigh. And so when you weigh up the pros and cons, you are carefully considering and evaluating the pluses and the minuses. Yeah, you're carefully evaluating the benefits and the drawbacks. So not only are tuition fees astronomically high nowadays, so you remember this from the adverb collocation lessons, we had astronomically high, but also access to funding is virtually non-existent, and there is no right to defer repayments. So I'm telling the truth here, which is that for students nowadays, it's a lot harder to get to university. And I actually think they get a lot less in return, sadly. I don't think they very often get a decent degree or a decent quality education for the amount of money that they're paying. So when we were at university, we received student grants. So a grant is a kind of benefit. It's something that you don't pay back. A loan is something that you certainly ought to pay back. Yeah, there's a big difference. So a grant, you don't have to pay back. A loan, you do have to pay back. Now, the grants that we got were given to everybody. Yeah, they weren't just for certain people or students who excelled, but we do have something called scholarships, and scholarships are usually for students who win that scholarship by showing that they are an excellent student, to show that they're worth that money. Somebody's investing in them to study because, well, they're a really good student. They've got really good ability, academic ability, and so they're awarded a scholarship. That's the idea anyway. I don't know if it actually works like that. I never got a scholarship, and in fact, I don't know anybody who ever has had a scholarship. Okay, but students of today must borrow heavily. So borrow money from a bank. Remember, lend and borrow for money because they're very useful for money. Usually when you give someone money, you want it back. So you lend them money and that other person borrows the money from you. Okay, students of today must still borrow heavily and accept that they will be living on a shoestring budget for many years. So if you live on a shoestring budget, you live on a budget of very low cash, very little income. If you've got very little income, you're living on a shoestring budget. Yeah, you're living on the breadline if you're living on a shoestring budget. So they're very similar, to live on a shoestring budget and to live on the breadline. Living on a shoestring budget just makes it very clear that that it's your income that's very low, and that's why, no doubt, you've got to live on the breadline if you're living on a shoestring budget. So there are plenty of degrees available that aren't worth the paper they're printed on. We've often say this about a document, that like a degree, I don't know, it could be a degree in something really useless and non-vocational. And you might say, well, that degree is not worth the paper it's printed on. And it just means that it's not going to get you a job. Nobody's going to be impressed with that degree. And so it's not worth it. It wasn't worth all that money that you spent on education. It wasn't worth the money you spent on your accommodation. It wasn't worth the tuition fees. And I think that sadly this is the case. And so don't just throw your money down the drain and go to university when a lot of courses you're not going to learn that much. This would certainly be my advice for anybody who's 18 at the moment, or 16, 17, 18. I would suggest that they think very carefully about whether going to university is worth it, because I think a lot of people are throwing their money down the drain and then doing jobs afterwards where they didn't need to go to university, and really it was just 3 or 4 years of partying and not much academic study at all. But I think if you are going to study, if you want to study an academic subject in detail, then of course you ought to think about going to university, but do carefully consider your options. Do weigh up the pros and cons, and certainly think about the money. So err on the side of caution. If you do go to university, err on the side of caution. And this means be careful. Be more careful than you are risky. Don't risk. Take care. So err on the side of caution. It means, don't be risky, but be careful. Choose a vocational course. So that means a course which is work related, that is aimed at a particular profession, a particular job. So if you've got a vocational course, you're very likely to end up with a job after it. So choose a vocational course which is bound to lead to a handsome salary further down the road. So handsome collocates with salary. Weird, but true. Remember that men, we normally say are handsome, and women, we usually say beautiful or pretty. But you can say handsome salary as well. And it sounds pretty good. It's obviously a great salary, a good salary, a high salary, a handsome salary further down the road. And further down the road means in the future. Okay, so I hope that was all clear and interesting for you all. So morning to everybody. Morning Vedat, morning Maria, morning Mikhail, and morning Vedat. So I'm going to carry on making lessons about money vocabulary, and I will be putting this document up on my website on the following page. Let's put it up for you all again, because I know that sometimes people miss things, but it's going to be on this page. And if you go to this page, you'll be able to watch all of my old classes on work vocabulary. So anybody complaining that they're not seeing my lessons at the moment, or they're missing my lessons, simply isn't going to my website. That's all you got to do to watch my lessons. And if you go to this website, you will find exercises that you'll never find on YouTube. All you'll find on YouTube is adverts. Yeah, you'll find adverts on YouTube, but on my website, there will be no adverts, and there are free exercises. And so please don't watch me on YouTube, watch me on my website, and please join me for these live classes every day. And okay, if you join me on YouTube, I don't care where you join me for these live classes, but I would like you to start going to the website so that you can get these free exercises, so that you can make progress. Yeah, you will not learn all this new vocabulary, and it's huge, unless you do the exercises. So if you're not doing the exercises, you're not learning these new words. Get yourself over to skypelessons.com vocabulary so that you can practice. And I'll probably be making a lesson 2 tomorrow morning, or maybe Friday morning, or maybe I'll do a different topic, but it'll probably be this topic because I've got all the material ready. And so Vera's just asked, how often do you organize streams on VK? More or less every day, Vera, more or less every day. And I'm going to keep doing that just because I like to get my lessons out there, and I'm building a new website. And so I want lots of lessons for the website. And so, yeah, pretty much every day. I believe I'm live on VK now. I think so, because you're on VK, aren't you, Vera? I see a little VK symbol by your name, so I think you're on VK. I'm actually, I think it streams to VK and YouTube and Twitter. I am actually on Twitter as well, and Twitch, believe it or not. I think I'm on Twitch. I started an account, and it should be streaming through to all of those 4 platforms, but my YouTube channel is synced to Odyssey, and so that means that my classes appear on Odyssey too, and it's via Odyssey that I use, that I have it on the website. And Odyssey don't put any adverts on the lessons, and so they're all advert free. I'm trying to make it better for you guys, really. I'm trying to make the material better than the material that I have on YouTube, so that my website can compete with the channel that I have on YouTube. Okay, so thanks everybody for coming. I do appreciate all your support. Please go to the website for lessons, for exercises on this material. Let me prove it to you. Look, you've got all of these exercises coming. I don't want to show you too much, because otherwise I'll give it all away. But you can see I've done a lot of work on all of this vocabulary stuff, so I've got plenty more for you coming. Whoopsie daisy, plenty more coming for everybody. Okay, yeah, so do let your friends know, Vera, if they're learning English as well. Do let them know that they can come along every morning to these classes. They usually start at 10:15 or 10:30. And all they've got to do is just come, just join us. Yeah, you can join me on VK, you can join me on YouTube, wherever you like, and you should be able to make comments and stuff like that. I know some people have been saying that they've been having trouble getting through onto the website. I know Maria, for example, who's just made a comment that she said she's had trouble. Please do tell me if you can't get into the website, but all I can do is give you another link. It's working for me, and it's working for the people that are coming to it every day, and so it should be okay. And so, yeah, I don't know what's going on if you can't get on the website, or if you can't watch the videos. You should be able to. Okay, so thanks everybody for watching. Let me just leave you with the idea that you might want to buy my visual phrasal verbs book. And of course, you also might want to buy my grammar in theory and in practice book. This one I actually enjoyed a lot more to writing it, just because it's about grammar, and I actually think it's a very interesting theme. So thanks everybody for watching. Hopefully see all you guys tomorrow, or maybe later